Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here, then please do me a favour and hit that subscribe button. So, the Cleveland Browns travel to Detroit to play the very in-form Detroit Lions. I nearly said Detroit Tigers there, with obviously everything that's going on with the baseball at the minute.
Yep.
The Tigers getting a win last night, it's getting interesting. But I am joined by the man, the legend, super producer Fletch, the guy that actually gave me my first ever start in terms of talking about the NFL on the internet. So big shout out to Fletch for everything that's led to this point. And obviously, as soon as the Browns were on, had the Lions, and obviously I knew that this game was, and when this game was going to be, Fletch was always going to be the person to do this preview with. So glad to have you on, Fletch. First and foremost, how are you feeling on this wonderful Friday night here in the UK?
Well, I can't. Just emotional after that. No, emotional. I'm buzzing, man. I can't wait. Obviously, like I say we've had that little bit. We've had the Guardians and the Tigers going on for a few days. Half of me wants to see the Tigers have simply bottled it. The other half has to obviously give pure credit to the Guardians for catching up and making these 3 games left. It's very, very, very interesting. But
that's what we want.
Well, exactly. It's what you want. You need to. The team best informed needs to be the one going into those. Going into the playoffs in the better position. So. But yeah, I'm loving life at the moment. Very, very excited to talk about the Lions and the Browns, and it couldn't come, as you say, with the Tigers and the Guardians, couldn't come at a more opportune time for these two teams to meet now.
Yeah, great timing. Schedule gods seem to do this one pretty well. But before we get into this game, first and foremost, as a Lions fan, obviously Browns fans can have their own expectations for other teams. Yep. But as an actual Lions fan, and when I say Fletch is a Lions fan, guys, I mean Fletch is a Lions fan. This is a very, very dedicated Detroit sports fan. Not many people know more about Detroit sports. I don't know why I'm saying it like Detroit, but not many people know more about Detroit sports than Fletch. So what were your expectations coming into this season for the Lions, obviously after what would be considered a disappointing end to last season after such an incredible regular season? What was your expectations? Was it higher than last year going into last year, or where were you at?
It's a weird one, and obviously I say we you and I have had a couple of back and forths on what maybe the expectation should be given who we lost throughout the off season. I always felt like losing both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, it have an effect. You would be stupid if you'd say otherwise, but at the same time, I wasn't as sceptical of the effect that it would have per se on the roster. Obviously, you keep the vast majority of the roster. The skill positions are pretty much all the same. So you've got to think that at least within that system. And then the two people who were put into the position, like Kelvin Shepherd, has come through the Aaron Glenn system. John Morton was with the Lions only a couple of years ago for a couple of years. So they've already been within the system. They know what the team's capable of. They know how to play to those strengths. They don't have to come in and learn a load of brand new names. So I would have thought that it would have been a bit of an easier transition, but there still has to be a transition. You'd also be daft to say if you didn't say that the Packers had got better throughout the off-season, the Vikings had arguably got better throughout the off-season, the Bears had definitely got better through the off-season. Wouldn't turn around and say the NFC North was it was somewhat of an expected. You expect a challenge for it, but to say that it was ours and we'd walk into the season, the NFC North's ours, and come and get it would be a bit naive, I think. So
yeah,
definitely we're still looking to. You were looking to be in the playoffs, challenging for the North as one of the favourites, if not the favourite, but being fully wary of the fact, and as well the schedule's tough. Like you couldn't ask for much. It's the negative effects of being good, I guess, is you then have to go and play a tougher schedule every year. When you win your division, you go play over division winners. So,
well, you say that, but unfortunately for the Cleveland Browns, it doesn't matter how good or bad we are, we seem to always have a tough schedule.
Yeah.
And of course, that includes your Detroit Lions on that schedule. Obviously, 5 years ago, this would have been a bit more of a much more friendly game, shall we say.
Yeah.
This would have been the Lake Erie buddies that everyone laughs at, battling for who can not suck the most that year, I suppose. Fast forward to 2025, obviously the Lions have gone through the last few years completely changing the trajectory of the franchise, winning the division for the first time in forever, going to an NFC championship game, being on the brink of a Super Bowl, completely changed that franchise in the last few years, something that the Cleveland Browns are chasing and have not been able to achieve.
Yeah.
So obviously now, fast forward to this game, I would say that it's a little bit more, not tense, shall we say. I mean, the Lions are expected to win this game, let's be honest. I'll just get that out of the way now. I don't know what the line is, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be quite high. No one is going to pick the Browns to win this game, probably not even a lot of Browns fans. But that was exactly the same last week, playing the Green Bay Packers, and the Browns somehow won that game. Yep. Of course, the Green Bay Packers is the only team that's beaten the Lions through 3 weeks this season. Where were you at after that game? So, obviously coming into the season, all the excitement, and then you go and get not blown up, completely blown out, but dominated by a Green Bay Packers team that, as you said, are projected to challenge you guys for the division this year.
Yeah, you get blown out by a division opponent any given day of the week, any point in the season. Your season's over, their season's still going. It don't matter. You get blown out by a division opponent, it hurts. It's one of those. So to say I wasn't in the greatest of moods after that game would probably be an understatement. But I think I was able. The next day, you're able to kind of look at the game, compartmentalise it, and say, well, where did it go wrong? You ask yourself a few questions, and the play calling did seem a bit off, but also so did some of the O-line play. That was suspect. There were just a few, and you can kind of walk away and say, right, yes, it was a bit of a shit show throughout, but here are some things that I guess if you can patch up these things, you'll be okay. And these are actual things that you can work on. It's not just and these are things that, okay, didn't expect them to get fixed on and work so quickly as they did throughout the week, but you kind of expected them to take a few weeks, and luckily they seem to have worked on those. They all did, like I say, they all seem like fixable problems that just needed maybe a bit of time as everyone gets used to being back into football. And it winds me up a little bit that no one plays pre-season anymore, a little bit, because you do get those rough, weird starts to the season from at least some of the drives. And so, yeah, looking out, I say, coming out of that game, like I was, you're staring down the barrel of darkness. Everything feels like you've just lost all hope. You've been battered by a division rival, and then you compartmentalise it. These things need to change, and then fortunately throughout the last couple of weeks, it seems that they have fixed those things.
Yeah, and as you said, I mean, week 1 is the most unpredictable week of the NFL season, maybe only matched with week 18, shall we say? Yeah. I mean, the Browns had a similar feeling after their week 1 loss. Obviously not quite to the extent when you obviously, when you're talking about the Lions and talking about, the things that they had to address and etc. They're things that you're talking about that will lead to you guys making the playoffs and being a contender. The Browns, after their loss, there was obviously a lot of things that, I mean, the Browns should have won that game against Cincinnati. The only reason they didn't win that game was because of the leg of their kicker and, a few mistakes from the offense. But, there was plenty of things that Browns fans could say, well, if we fix these things, then obviously we win that game. I mean, the Browns should be 2-1 right now, but obviously not to the same extent of, if we fix these things, we're going to be, go and challenge for an NFC championship game like the Lions should. But moving on to the game itself, of course, the juicy part, the good part, there is only one thing that we should start with when it comes to this game. This is probably not something we've ever said when it comes to a Lions versus Browns game. But that is the Lions offense going up, and this is one of the better offenses in the NFL. It's been one of the better offenses in the NFL the last couple of years. Going up against the Cleveland Browns defense, which is, I'm pretty sure, the number one graded defense in the NFL per most, I think, PFF and most other things. Lead a lot of the major statistical categories for a defense. In some people's opinion, the best defense in the NFL. How excited are you, first and foremost, just to see this matchup, to see the Browns' defensive line go up against that Lions' formidable offensive line, to see those linebackers go up against those running backs and those tight ends, and to see that secondary go up against those receivers?
You know more than anyone else just how I pounded the rock for Penei Sewell and how much I love him, and also always manage to find a way as much as I can to give Myles Garrett those flowers. It's a mouth-watering matchup, and I do hope that, however, obviously as things get chopped and changed around the line and you try and test out some of those matchups, I get it if you don't put Myles Garrett on Penei Sewell and you put him on, or you try and do some of those stunts and get him in on that interior, because that interior it's still a weak interior, and you can get to Goff, you can get him out of his rhythm very, very easily with someone like Myles Garrett against that interior. But I just cannot wait for the battle of Penei Sewell on Myles Garrett. I think it's going to be one that feeds families. It's going to be one it's going to be generational, and you'd be hard pressed not to be watching that and the O-line and the D-line go at it as the game goes on. You're absolutely right, by the way. As far as PFF goes, the Browns are number one in defense overall, number one in run defense, number 7 in tackling, number 1 in pass rush, and number 7 in coverage. Throughout the defense, top 7 in three of those categories, you're top 1. So throughout the defense, it is obviously the both lines going at it, but also it's not going to be easy if Goff is slinging the ball around a little bit and able to get the ball out. You are that good in coverage as well. So I think looking at some of this, it's going to be how the Lions get all the different things going and all the different pieces on offense, and not allow you guys to kind of focus on Amon-Ra St. Brown, not focus on Sam Laporta, although they're going to obviously have to be key factors in the game, but you have to get Jameson Williams involved. You have to get Jahmyr Gibbs involved. You have to get David Montgomery. You have to get all the pieces involved. So how the Lions do that, figure that out, whether a trick play or two comes out, just to try and circumvent the fact that the entire Browns defense is very, very good across the board.
Yeah, it starts with the defensive line. I mean, there's been some cracks in the secondary. Obviously, having Denzel Ward back there, one of the best corners in the NFL, that obviously elevates any team's secondary. But there are some cracks that obviously I'm worried about. We might get into that. Obviously, worry me. Obviously, at the slot corner position, although Miles Harden, was better last week. It was actually quite solid last week, despite the penalty at the end that nearly gave the game away. But it starts with the Browns' defensive line. This is, in my opinion, the best defensive line in football. This is the best front 7 in football, in my opinion. Obviously, you mentioned it, that when having Denzel in your secondary elevates that. Having Myles Garrett on your defensive line, fucking hell, that makes any defensive line good. But when you have the players next to him that he has this year, I've been saying it for months now, this is the best defensive line that Myles Garrett has had. This is the best supporting cast that Myles Garrett has had. And I'm going to do this is the only time during this that I'm going to talk any shit, because I don't expect the Browns to win this game. Let's get that out of the way now. But this is the only time I'm going to stand on some shit and talk some shit, and that is by saying I dare you to leave Penei Sewell on an island in pass protection against Myles Garrett. I believe that Penei Sewell is the best run blocking offensive lineman, not just tackle. Yeah. Offensive lineman in the NFL. I believe he is one of the best offensive tackles in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. He is incredible. But if there's one weakness with Penei Sewell, and when I say weakness, I don't mean weakness like he's not good at it. I just mean one thing that he's not as elite at as he is at all the other stuff is pass protection.
Yeah.
I think he's 26th this year through 3 weeks in pass protection amongst tackles. He's good. Don't get me wrong. He's Penei Sewell. He's a big body. He's hard to move around. But Myles Garrett, in my opinion, is the best defensive player on the planet. Myles Garrett is the best pass rusher that I have ever seen. This is not a knock on Penei Sewell. I dare any team to leave any offensive tackle on an island against Myles Garrett. And I just hope that the first few dropbacks, Detroit gets confident with Myles and Penei.
Yeah.
And I think that would be Myles' chance to get the sack. That's my only time I'm going to talk shit in terms of standing on that. I could be completely wrong in that. If Penei Sewell locks him up, I will come and own it. But the Browns' defensive line that I was getting to, the reason why I think it is, my hand is for some reason in this position, the reason I think that this is the best defensive line that Myles has played on is not because of the guy on the other side with him, although Isaiah McGuire, Alex Wright, keep going, Joe Shaniqua, all the other guys, butchered his name there. All the other rotation pieces they've got at edge, fantastic. But it's the interior. Myles has never had an interior this good that can alleviate pressure off him. Yeah. Malik Collins and Mason Graham is one hell of an interior presence. Malik Collins is the second highest defensive lineman this year per PFF. Yeah. Behind, of course, number one, Myles Garrett. Aiden Hutchinson is obviously top 4 on that list as well. We'll get into him later. You mentioned it. The Lions' offensive line has, if it has any weakness, it's that interior. Yeah. Are you worried at all about what you've seen from the Browns' defensive tackles going up against that interior?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are very few players I know on the Browns more than your interior defensive lineman there. Mason Graham. I'll just have this for 1 second so I can take my voice on. If you're looking at the moment and you're on you will be able to tell. I've watched a lot of Mason Graham over the last couple of years and just how much I love him and how fantastic he is. But his transition into the NFL has seemingly become fantastic, unfortunately. And this is the one bit of genuine shit I'm going to talk. Week 1, you play at home, you don't win. Mason Graham finally loses in the state of Ohio. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna. There we go.
No, that's fair enough. I always say to you, mate, when whoever wins the game can talk shit until the next person wins it. That is all. That is all for you.
I know where your audience's affiliations lie. I maybe free myself up some attention on social media here. It's fine. But no, I love the whole interior and what I saw. So, for example, when you look at week 1 against the Packers, there was one snap in particular that ended up circulating on social media where there was a clear mistake between Graham Glasgow and Tate Ratledge. And Glasgow goes right, Tate Ratledge goes left, and you've got the note, like you've got your D tackle just there on his own.
Yeah, unblocked.
2 yards, hit Jared Goff. No, it wasn't even Jared Goff, it was David Montgomery. There's just a D tackle on his own with David Montgomery right on the end zone there, so it could have very, very quickly become a safety if David Montgomery didn't do what he did. So I think you're going to have to, as you say, you can't just leave Myles Garrett on an island with Penei Sewell. You can't let that happen. So you're probably going to be bringing a Tate Ratledge over. You're probably going to be pinning, or there's some of the ways you're going to be rotating and playing those pins from the offensive line. Means someone else is going to have a matchup on an island that's probably a bit more favourable. Those are the things that were. It's how much attention you do have to put on Myles Garrett that does worry me. And then once your interior gets along and they realise you can't just keep leaving them on their own, and it creates so much havoc along the line, because who do you focus on? Who do you put attention on? You have to put attention on Garrett, but also you have to put attention on Graham. Also, you have to put attention on the other two. And then you also have to give attention to the linebackers who are coming down. You just create so much havoc. And one thing we know about Goff is if you can hit him, if you can get that penetration, you can you can cause him to fluster a little bit. And he can become a bit flustered in the pocket. The throws that he makes are a bit rushed. He won't start to see ghosts, but he does rush things and he does get out of rhythm, and it's never a good.
Yeah, if you're gonna have any knock on Jared Goff, if anyone throughout the last probably 10 years is gonna have anything biggest negative to say about Jared Goff, you've nailed it on the head. Yeah. It's that if you put him under pressure, he will make mistakes. He's not the best quarterback. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's not Patrick Mahomes. Let's just say that. He's not a Joe Burrow even. If you can put him under pressure, you can cause a lot of duress for him. It's keeping him clean where he is so deadly.
Yeah, and you can tell, by the way, especially against the Bears and the Ravens on Monday Night Football, you could see some of the ways in which, I think that's something they've tried to work on him throughout the offseason. You're not going to turn him into Lamar Jackson. That's not happening. He's not pinning out and rolling to the right and throwing it. He's just not doing those kinds of things. But if you're at least a little bit shiftier with your feet, if you can sense that pressure and just cut a little bit, you can start to do those things. So they've clearly worked on that for, I think, the last couple of years, but definitely over this offseason. But again, it's all well and good until you've got a Mason Graham and a Myles Garrett, and you've got a Malik Collins, and you've got an Isaiah McGuire, etc., all coming at you in different ways. There's nowhere to jump. There's nowhere to run to.
Yeah. And you mentioned Isaiah McGuire there. You might be surprised to know this, but he's the highest the highest pass rush win rate out of any edge in the NFL this season through 3 weeks, which is just insane. I am so giddy about that because I've been an Isaiah McGuire truther for 2 years now. This is someone that, as soon as he was getting serious snaps for the Browns, I identified as someone that was far outplaying his draft position. Yeah. This is a fourth round pick, I think, fourth or fifth round pick out of Missouri. He was, even as a rookie, one of the better run stopping defensive ends. That's his forte. He is a top tier run defender at the edge position. Yeah. His development as a pass rusher makes him a scary player. Just wanted to say that because Isaiah McGuire, I'm so excited for his development and obviously to see that continue. But you mentioned all the other guys there. Malik Collins, he's up there in pass rush win rate. Mason Graham leads all defensive tackles, rookies in pass rush win rate. Pass rush win rate. There we go. It's the Browns' defensive line is as I said, it's the best unit on this team. It's what gives them the biggest chance to win every single week. If they can get after Goff, obviously that is going to go a long way. But that starts with stopping this run attack from the Lions. That last week, fucking hell, like 250 yards between just David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. It felt like 4 touchdowns, I believe. Yep. Incredible. But you mentioned at the start, the Browns do have the number 1 run defense in the NFL. They are only allowing 2.9 yards per carry, I'm pretty sure. And obviously, I think 58 or something yards per game, rushing yards. So that is the biggest thing for me. That is the key. If the Cleveland Browns defense can stop the Detroit Lions run attack, that will be the biggest thing that goes towards if the Browns win this game. Do you feel the same? Absolutely.
I think that's every week with the Lions. The whole game is obviously we can talk what we want about Jared Goff and all that sort of stuff, but at the end of the day, the one thing that's not changed through Ben Johnson, through John Morton, is it's the run game that establishes everything. Whether that is Jahmyr Gibbs, whether that's David Montgomery, the run game is what establishes the rest of the game and opens the playbook. If you can stifle that, we've seen what that can do. If you look at the Packers in week 1, they stifled the run game, everything fell apart. You look at even the games we lost or had close last year, they stifled the run game, things fell apart. It is what it is. The one benefit, I guess, to having the run game the way the Lions have it is you have a Jahmyr Gibbs and you have a David Montgomery. If you two very, very different, pretty different styles of running backs. It's well and good stopping one, but you've then got to come in and you come in to stop the speed, but then David Montgomery hits you in the face. You want to stop being hit in the face, Jahmyr Gibbs races past you. So it's doable, and if any D-line can do it, including with the run defense, the Browns are going to be one of them, if not the one to do it. But yeah, it has to come through stopping the run game first.
Yeah, I mean that was the biggest thing in the Packers game. I mean, we completely shut Josh Jacobs down. I think that was his first in like 11 games, straight consecutive games where he didn't score a touchdown. Completely limited him in that game. Week 2 held Derrick Henry to 23 yards on 11 carries, and obviously Week 1 held Chase Brown to like 2 yards per carry. That's 3 pretty good running backs: Chase Brown, Derrick Henry, and obviously Josh Jacobs. Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery on their own, they're not better than Derrick Henry in my opinion. Maybe right now. Okay, maybe Jahmyr Gibbs is. I'd probably take Jahmyr Gibbs on my team over Derrick Henry. That I will admit that. But as you said, together is what makes them so dangerous. Even the Browns have tried to somewhat replicate that this year, obviously with Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson, having that 1-2 punch, but with, as you said, the different styles, but the coexisting styles that they have that work so well together. That's what makes this rush attack so good. And it's not just the simple handing the ball off to these guys as well. When you talk about the Lions rush attack, it does somewhat include Jared Goff, because the extension of the run game through the pass game, i.e. screens, and obviously those quick passes as well. That is such a big part of it as well. I am so excited to this. I'm so excited to watch it this weekend. You know me, I know you. We're big nerds for offensive line and defensive line play. This is going to just be such a fun game for me and you to watch. Can't wait to watch this. This defensive line go up against that offensive line. This run defense to go up against that rush attack that you guys have. Those defensive linemen. I mean, Carson Schwessinger. My pick for defensive rookie of the year on Hurdle the Line. I'm pretty sure most people there probably thought, "What the hell is Ollie saying there?" But I think a lot of people are learning why I was so high on Carson Schwessinger. Devin Bush, I mean, what a year he's having. He's looking like rookie Devin Bush coming out of Michigan. He's been incredible. Those linebackers, as I said, that front seven going up against that rush attack is going to be so fun. If the Browns can stop that rush attack, if they can get pressure on Jared Goff, as I said, put him under some duress, that's going to be the key for the Browns, doing what they did to pretty much all 3 teams, other than obviously the Ravens when you look at the score, but and to doing that to the Lions. Finally, on your offense, I suppose the one thing, if I'm going to be a Browns fan and I'm going to try and look for, other than obviously the actual on the field stuff, if I'm going to look at something that I can take as a positive and be like, maybe this is a good thing for us. Week 1 against the Packers, one of the better defenses in the NFL, you scored 13 points. As you said, got dominated in that game. Week 2 against the Bears, you scored 52 points. Don't get me wrong. To score 52 points on any NFL team is impressive. But that Bears defense is a mess. They're missing like 3 of their starting secondary players. The defensive line has not been great. The Ravens, people might be surprised by me saying this, but the Ravens defense is pretty shaky this year. The Browns didn't show that because the Browns offense is even worse. But you guys exploited that. I think they have shown this year that defense is shaky, especially in the secondary. Now you play the Browns defense, similar to the Packers defense. So I suppose where I'm getting to with that whole waffle is, if I'm a Browns fan, I'm saying, well, the only good defense they played, they got dominated. That would give me hope as a Browns fan. I'm not saying that's going to happen, of course.
Oh, no.
But what do you make of that, I suppose?
I mean, the other question I've got this week, and it's not related to the Browns or the Lions, is on Daniel Jones. He finally comes up against a real defense in the Rams.
Yep.
We can say what you want about Daniel Jones so far, and he's been fantastic, and you've got to play what's in front of you, but he finally comes up against a real defense in the Rams this week. absolutely with it. You play a real defense. The only time we played a real defense, I say real defense. Yeah, like I say,
a great defense.
The Ravens are a real defense. They've just shaken.
Yeah.
You come up against where it's the one thing I'm worried about still would be the tactical side of things. How it ends up being schemed. How much has been learned from the Packers in week 1? Obviously, you are a different defense to the Packers. The Packers have a Micah Parsons, but you have a Myles Garrett, and as great as Micah Parsons is,
they play a lot more zone.
Yeah.
We're a more man, but they play a lot more zone.
Yeah,
that's probably the biggest difference.
And it's all well and good. Yeah, it's all well and good saying, all right, okay, then well we've got Jameson Williams, but you've got to allow the time for those Jameson Williams plays to develop. And well, you go back to the D-line conversation versus O-line conversations to how much time we realistically think he's going to get to develop those plays. It's going to be like I say, and then that's where it comes into where do trick plays come into it? Who is the target? How well are they spreading it around? Because the Packers didn't let us do that, and the benefit I think we do have is the Packers obviously have let's say a better offense, and definitely did have a better offense in week 1. And that more just kind of goes to they were able to capitalise on the defensive mistakes, get themselves into some good field position, and then the Lions are coming up against we're in obvious passing downs. We're down by 14, we're down by 17, we're down by 21, whatever. Whereas I have that little bit more faith in the Lions' defense to stop the Browns' offense. To not put us in those obvious passing down situations, to not be chasing a game so much, and to still be looking to kind of try and put the stamp on the game offensively. That's where I think we see the benefit. I think for some of this offense is where the field position will come into it, and whether we're chasing a game or not.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I can't wait. Cannot wait to watch this Browns defense go against that Lions offense. It's going to be one of the highlights of this weekend in the NFL in general. It truly is a tasty matchup. Your offensive coordinator's had some comments about, don't think they've seen a run game like ours. Myles Garrett's responded by saying, fair enough, say what you want, but I don't think they've seen a defense like ours. Even Mason Graham, your boy, he's jumped in and said, he's made his comments. I can't wait for it. It's going to be the biggest battle of this game. But moving on to the other side of the ball, you mentioned it there. The Browns' offense has been atrocious through 3 weeks. Joe Flacco has not been great, but he has not been helped out by his offensive line. This is the 3rd consecutive year where the Browns have been unable to get past week 3 with both of their starting tackles. Even Jack Conklin again is questionable this week, so we might be on the 2 backups again this week. It's a mess. The Lions' defense, I'll get into in a bit some areas I think the Browns, if they can come alive, might be able to exploit. But last week were incredible. 7 sacks on Lamar?
7, yeah.
7 sacks on Lamar. Aiden Hutchinson and the guy opposite him, what's his name?
Mohammed.
The former, yeah, that's the one. He's been incredible through 3 weeks. Those guys have been great. What's your first kind of impressions of this Lions defense going up against this atrocious Browns offense?
Having the game they did against the Ravens was important. I mean, the confidence to go in. I don't think NFL teams really care who they go up against. If you have a game with 7 sacks, doesn't matter who you're up against. The defense goes, we got 7 sacks. So I think as far as confidence goes, it worked either way. But I do think it does give a little bit more credence. You do have that little bit more buzz to have 7 sacks on Lamar Jackson. For Aiden Hutchinson to get a fumble. I don't care if Derrick Henry has a case of the fumbles, which he has done this season. But for Aiden Hutchinson to walk away, getting that fumble on Derrick Henry as and when it did happen as well. Those kind of things, obviously, the way that sets you up that week, the bounce it gives you, I think, as you prepare is one thing. But also, most of us like to forget it now. They had 2 missed interceptions as well through that game that really, really should have been interceptions on the same drive, so only one of them would have counted either way.
Yeah.
But the performances that they put up, they've continuously got better. And I say against that offense last week, the benefit being is similarly there are holes in those DBs. Terry and Arnold is, for crying out loud, man, he's just too handsy, and that's a problem that Lions fans have had. He's good at tackling. He's too handsy in coverage. Allows too much separation. We've had some, like DJ Reed has been allowing a bit of separation. Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch are. I'm not going to say they're the best safety duo in the league, but they're up there. Although Brian Branch again has too much a case of nearly getting ejected for doing things to crowds and winding people up. So they're coming in off a very big game. Got to be coming in confident. They're coming in gelling well. And like you said, that Browns defense, just to go back to some of the PFF grades, that Browns offense, is 32nd on total offense, in passing offense the 24th, in pass blocking the 29th, in receiving the 32nd, and in the run game 21st, which isn't thing. And then run blocking is 28th. So again, you're falling in that bottom 3/8 on just about every stat. It helps. It does help, and like you say, it comes down to hopefully the defense allowing for better field position for the offense. Obviously, you'll put up some points, but I imagine it to be a well fought game from that defense that doesn't allow too much. And that D line, like I say, can hopefully give a bit of time. Similarly, it'll all start at the defensive front as well.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got Jared Goff, who is, as we mentioned, not the fastest guy, not the most movable guy back there, but we have a 40-year-old Joe Flacco, who, for all of the things I can say about Jared Goff, Joe Flacco literally is a statue back there. Respect to him, because he doesn't do the old man sack that we've seen from many quarterbacks over the years, where they just fall down whenever someone is near them. He does stand in there and try and get that ball out. So, credit where credit is due, but he is a bit of a statue back there. I'll start by being honest. Obviously, this Browns offense has been atrocious. As I said, I don't expect it to be much better. It's been really bad. The offensive line is a mess. Joe Flacco back there, as I said, he's not been helped out. But even last week, watching the tape, he missed quite a lot of throws. He left quite a lot of yards and a lot of plays out on the field. There's just not much for Browns fans to feel confident about with this offense. If the Browns are going to win this game, most people are probably going to think it's 9-6. It will be one of those kind of games. It will be a slugfest.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying this is going to happen, but obviously you have to look forward. You have to, of course, expect things to improve somewhat. You have to expect players to improve. And obviously the Browns' biggest highlight on their offensive side of the ball has been their rookies.
Yep.
Over 50% of their yards so far through 3 weeks have come through their rookies. That's unheard of. That is truly just, as I said, unheard of. Harold Fanning, Quinshon Judkins, Dylan Sampson, those guys have been the bright spots on the offense, shall we say. Quinshon Judkins has practiced 4 times in 3 months, and he leads all rookie running backs in rushing yards, over 5 yards per carry. Yeah. Even despite running behind an awful offensive line, if the offensive line can somewhat improve the run blocking, you then obviously expect Quinshon Judkins to be even better. So there are some bright spots, obviously, on this Browns offense that if they can get a game where the offensive line can hold up and Joe Flacco can somewhat take himself back to the old days and start slinging it out there, maybe they can make some plays. But in terms of the Lions' defense, as I said, all credit to them the last week and even the last couple of weeks. I am, of course, worried about this Browns offense going up against that defensive line and that pass rush in particular. Yeah. But if I'm a Browns fan, again, as I did with, obviously, the offense, as I would do with the defense, if I'm looking at areas to exploit the Detroit Lions, the last 2 games, you score 38 points against the Ravens, but you do give up 30 points. You do give up over 300 yards. the Bears game, even despite that being a 29-point win, he did give up 339 yards of offense. Granted, a lot of that was probably in garbage time.
Yeah.
But he did give up the yards, and 21 points, and then obviously 27 points against the Packers. So you are averaging around 25 points, 26 points given up.
Yeah.
You can score points against the Lions. Whether or not you can hold, stop them from scoring points, that's another question. And obviously we've been through that, but they have shown through 3 weeks that you can score points. Obviously, the Browns have shown that they can't score points. They haven't scored more than 17 points in fucking 18 games or something stupid. But as I said, if all things fall into place and the Browns offense can come alive, maybe they can score points against this offense. I mentioned obviously the yards that you've given up. Terry and Arnold has been shaky, shall we say. The last time I checked, he leads the NFL in pass yards given up. Jack Campbell actually leads all linebackers in pass touchdowns given up. And Brian Branch has given up 2, apparently, credited 2. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but just from my research, has been credited as giving up 2 touchdowns through 3 weeks. There are some areas to exploit this Detroit defense.
Oh no, absolutely. There definitely are. That's always been our weak spot, and where things like, if you remember going into the draft last year, and this is where you've got your Mason Graham. We can flip this background where we took a Tyreek Williams, whom obviously that's somebody whose college history I now have to forget and forgive. There's definitely areas to exploit, and I think you look at one of the things we tend to struggle with. We struggled with it on against the Ravens as well. We struggled with it against the Bears, and obviously we struggled with just about everything against the Packers in week 1. When Caleb had Rome Odunze, and don't get me wrong, it's not like Rome Odunze's any sort of bum anyway, and he'll see targets and catches. Once you see how Odunze exploited some of those plays against like your Terry Arnold, even against DJ Reed, they'll just keep smashing it, and there's nothing that the Lions can tend to do about it. This is something that happened last year. It takes me back to like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, when it was just like, for God's sake, someone stop Mike Evans. And it just felt like every time the ball went to Mike Evans, it was a catch for multiple yards. No matter what, you could put 6 people on him, it'd still happen. No matter what. So we have those problems, and when you have guys like Jerry Jeudy, whom,
he's struggled for 3 weeks. He's.
But again, I remember talking to you last year and saying I like Jerry Jeudy. I think the NFL, like I said this about, I can't remember who said it about the other day, but also it's like Jerry Jeudy is one of those players where I'm like, when he plays good, the NFL just seems a better place for it. I like him. I've had him in fantasy football. I've had him in all sorts. He's a player who I do like, and if you can get him in one of those favourable matchups, if you can get him up against Terry and Arnold or even DJ Reed at the moment, there are things that you can take from that. I like Harold Fanning has been someone that's been fun to watch as of late. David Njoku has always been fun to watch, and you put him against Jack Campbell, you put him against like Alex Anzalone, but he'll tend to come down to the line. Jack Campbell gets left in coverage. Put him against Jack Campbell. There are catches to be had there. There are yards to be had there, and potentially touchdowns to be had there. The only place where I think we seem to tend to do well on defense is in the red zone. We had a couple of really good stops in the red zone against the Ravens on.
That's good, because we
Monday.
don't go to the red zone.
That's
so
brilliant. Something just tends to work. I say we had that 4th down stop when they were on the 1 yard line, 2 yard line. Which right after that 4th down stop, we go on a 98 yard 10-minute drive.
Momentum killer.
Massively in the first half. So those are the kind of things where there's always going to be somewhere to exploit, and you'll find a matchup. You'll find one that favours you, and if you just keep hammering at it, like I say, if it's Jeudy against Terry and Arnold as an example, once that matchup's there, you've got it then, and that'll be there all game, no matter what the Lions tend to do, until they start bringing Branch over, or they'll bring a Kirby Joseph over. Kirby Joseph again tends to come down a little bit more. it's there and it's to be exploited, and you can exploit it. And I say hopefully. Obviously, I don't want you to get points out of it, but you can get points out of it.
Yeah, I mean the Browns receivers. Don't get me wrong. There's nothing to write home about, shall we say? There are some talented players in there, in my opinion, but they've not shown that through the first 3 weeks. You mentioned it earlier with their receiving grades. I mean, the separation, especially the first 2 weeks, the separation they were getting was non-existent. The Ravens game, even I mentioned it. I don't even think that Ravens secondary is great, and they were pretty much running the Browns wide receivers routes for them. But you mentioned it, Judy. He can have a big game. I think the Browns need to try and get Isaiah Bond involved in this game. He is our Jameson Williams, shall we say? Obviously, he's not Jameson Williams, but he's the guy that can take the top off over the top of the defense. If they can get him involved, Jerry Judy said Tillman, as I said. Obviously, the tight ends are going to be so big in this game. You're going to see 12 personnel probably every fucking offensive snap.
Yeah.
David Njoku and Harold Fanning are going to be so crucial for this Browns offense. If they can get those guys going, as you mentioned, up against a Jack Campbell, Alex Anazoni is obviously better, shall we say, in coverage. You probably prefer that matchup. But even if Brian Branch comes down, any of those safeties come down, you get a matchup with those guys. As you said, I mean, as I mentioned, Jack Campbell leads all linebackers in touchdowns given up. Brian Branch has given up a couple. You mentioned that there's touchdowns to be had, and I think that's going to be the biggest thing for the Browns in the pass game, is that if they can get those tight ends going, and if Isaiah Bond can at least give you something to worry about over the top and obviously create some more space for those tight ends to work with over the middle. That's a big if. The Browns have not shown that they can do this through 3 weeks. A big part of that has been that the offensive line has not allowed them any time to be able to do this stuff. But if they can, that's what is that's going to be the biggest thing for the Browns on offense this week. That's probably what's been the biggest thing in their game plan. And then of course the rookie Quinshon Judkins, who, I mean, he basically won the Browns that game last week. If it wasn't for his 52 yards on back-to-back plays, 14-yard carry and then a 38-yard carry. Don't think that was 52, so my terrible maths there. But I think that might have been, was it? I don't know. I'm not going to try and do the maths and embarrass myself even more. But he basically dragged the Browns into field goal position to get their first points. I say field goal position. We were on I don't know if you saw it, Fletch, but we were on the 1-yard line. First and goal at the 1, and then it was third and goal from the 20. So we had to settle for the field goal. But Quinshon Judkins came alive in that game. If he can get going in this game, that is obviously the most important thing for the Browns offense, because, going back to what they want to do with Kevin Stefanski, with that more kind of West Coast scheme, zone blocking, play action. Jared Goff, we've seen him be successful with the use of play action. Joe Flacco even more so. If you can get that run game going and give him time on those play action passes, on those bootlegs, that's going to open up this offense. But as I said, that is a massive if. The Browns have shown me they've given me no reason to believe that they can do that, and especially against the Lions, whose pass rush last week sacked Lamar fucking Jackson 7 times, let alone Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
So, do we see Dylan Gabriel in this game? I wouldn't be shocked. But, as I said, if there's any week to get going, those are the areas that the Browns would be able to exploit on offense.
Absolutely. And I am looking forward to seeing how that the Lions defensive line, how it continues going on from last week. And obviously, as will always be the case, Hutch is on for comeback player of the year anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
So far, I guess week 1 didn't exactly make the strongest case for it, but last couple of games is certainly putting his name back on that ballot. So we'll see. I'm really excited to see how that entire entire defensive line and how they've split it across. Because again, we said it about Myles Garrett, but it's not. The situation in Cleveland is unique because nobody else has a Myles Garrett. Nobody else will ever have a Myles Garrett. Again, Cleveland Browns fans, yes, I will wear a Michigan hat on this, but I will also very few people will speak outside of Cleveland speak higher of Myles Garrett than I will. But we've got a Hutch on the other side, and you look at how having someone like that just forces what an offensive line has to focus on, and just how an offensive line has to focus on what that opens for the other parts of that defensive line. And we saw it on Monday night where Al-Qadim Muhammad was able to get in, where the likes of the other guys are able to get in. And I think, again, we've mentioned both names now. It'd be fun to watch Tyleik Williams back in Ohio, Mason Graham back in Michigan. That's got to be fun for both of them as well.
Yeah. It's going to be a fun game overall. I mean, yes, the Browns' offense has been so boring, but if there's any week to get going, maybe it's this week. We'll have to wait and see. But that's the biggest thing that terrifies me about this. You know, if you ask me what terrifies you the most about the Lions defense going up against the Browns, it's the pass rush. It's Aiden Hutchinson. You mentioned it. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's not Myles Garrett. That's because nobody, as you said, is Myles Garrett. For me, it's Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, bit of a gap. But then I would say Aiden Hutchinson is in that conversation. Yeah. He is, a top 5 edge rusher right now in the NFL. That is nothing to shy away from.
No.
That is something to be scared of, and that is something that you need to game plan for going into that week.
Yeah.
That's what terrifies me the most. Obviously, going up against 2 backup tackles. Your interior defensive line not as higher graded as obviously those edges, but that's probably just because of how good those edges have been. I don't think that's a detriment to the interior per se. I think that's more just how good the edge is, or do you disagree with that? Do you think the interior's been...
I think you're also... Look, situationally, everything's a little bit different. I know, obviously, we spoke about just how good Mason Graham been. I do think Tyleik Williams has perhaps... This is the thing that gets me with PFF grades. And don't get me wrong, I like using PFF grades as some of the barometers and just seeing where teams rank. But as everyone knows, look, we're not going to base every single thing off, actually, PFF said.
Yeah. Even though they're a British company.
Yeah, none of us are going to do that. But he hasn't got off to like a lightning start.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't particularly put it down to the edges being as good as they are. I'd just say that look, there's just it's a bit patchy in the middle at times for us. We've got a rookie in there who's just played his 3rd game, and we've also got a guy who's come back in off. Well, we've got DJ Reader, and obviously we just struggled with having Marcus Davenport go out, who's injury prone anyway. So those are things that just happen, and maybe there are some things that PFF
DJ Reader's caused me a lot of pain over the years. Obviously, at his time at Cincinnati, he was actually at one point the one and only Nick Chubb stopper. He did a pretty good job on Nick Chubb in some of those games, but of course he's getting on a bit in age now. You mentioned some of those other guys. I mean, the Browns, in previous years, the best part of their offensive line was that interior. Obviously, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, Ethan Posich has been great the last couple of seasons. But the Browns have got 2 backup tackles in. That's not great. Cornelius Lucas, to be fair to him, has held his own somewhat. KT Leverston obviously having to come in last week wasn't great, but his first game for the team. But the interior has not been great either this year. Joel Bitonio looks like a man that contemplated retirement this past off season. Wyatt Teller continues his regression from 2020, and Ethan Posich has taken a step back. So I would like to sit here and say, well, that's maybe that's where the Browns can exploit you guys, with that interior offensive line, get those guys moving, create some space down the middle for Quinshon Judkins, for Jerome Ford, for Dylan Sampson, for Raheem Sanders, or whatever. But they've also been struggling kind of just as bad as those tackles. So, I can't really hang too much on that. But as we said, this is going to be a fun matchup, I think, for both sides of the ball, for both teams. Obviously, the highlight is going to be the Browns' defense against that Lions offense.
Yeah.
That's the biggest story of this game. That will be the biggest story after this game. It's going to be the Lions, wow, this offense is probably the best in the NFL. Just look what they just did to what was the best defense in the NFL through 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Or it's going to be, okay, this Browns defense might actually be generational, because look what they've done to these four offenses through the first 4 weeks. That's going to be the conversation. Lastly, one last question before we get on to just your final prediction, just as it just sprung to my head. The Browns lead the NFL. I don't think it's an NFL record. I'll have to double check, but it can't be far off. 31 consecutive games without giving up a 300-yard passer. We are 3 games away from 2 consecutive seasons worth of games of not giving up a 300-yard passer. What are the chances of Jared Goff breaking that?
I'd say low chances. If you are a betting man, you'd get some probably alright odds on that one, some decent money back. If I'm looking at Jared Goff passing yards, I'm looking around. I don't know what his over/under is via betting platforms. I do like to put a couple of quid on every now and again, but that's on a Sunday when I'm thinking I'm not checking the lines 3-4 days in advance unless I have to.
Yeah.
So I'm probably saying the line. I reckon it'd probably be around 230. It's just given the run game. If the run game goes kaput, we'll see. And if he has to throw and throw and throw, but given the weapons that he does have all across the field, but I'd say I'd be looking at you by Monday. You're 2 games away.
Which would be just I just want to get to 34 because that would just be so sick.
Is that the NFL record? Is that an NFL record, and is it continuing or?
I don't know if it's an NFL record. I know it's obviously it's the best streak in the NFL. I think the second best streak's like 6 games or something silly.
Yeah.
31 games without giving up a 300-yard passer is impressive. Don't get me wrong. There is one thing that should be considered with that isn't that impressive, and that is that, yes, over the course of some of those 31 games, the Browns got blown out pretty early and teams stopped throwing the ball because that's what you do. There is, of course, some of that to that. When you go 3-14 in that period, obviously that plays a part. But it is still impressive. But I asked that because, Jared Goff has thrown, if anyone can throw 300 yards, it's Jared Goff. He threw for over 300 yards against the Bears. But even in the Ravens, 38 points, and he only threw for 202 yards, net yards, and 200 net yards against the Packers. So, who knows? Based on that, he probably won't, but we'll have to wait and see.
Well, here's a fun little stat for you that I've got. With 300 passing yards on Sunday, I'm telling you because this is the only relevant time I've got to bring this up somewhat. Jared Goff can tie Drew Brees 44 games and Pro Football Hall of Famer Dan Marino 44 games for the 3rd most such games by a player in his first 10 seasons in NFL history. So,
as I said, if anyone can throw for 300 yards, it's Jared Goff. If any offense can throw for 300 yards, it's probably one of these this offense. So the streak is certainly in jeopardy, I should say. But we'll have to obviously, we'll have to wait and see. If I'm a betting man, I would probably bet the Browns defense to hold him under 300.
I would as well.
But I would not be shocked at all if he did get over 300, and unfortunately that streak came to an end. We'll obviously have to wait and see.
Yeah.
But finally, obviously, with it being a preview, we have to get a prediction. I don't care if it's a score prediction or just one team to win. Do it however you want to do it. What is your prediction for this game?
I bet against me Lions on Monday night, and I'm not doing it again.
You did.
As we all know, I was just sat there like, please just don't beat down on us.
Fletch did not think he was beating those Ravens.
So I'm not making that mistake again. I'm gonna stick with the Lions to win this one. But as you say, it's gonna be You say it's a fun game. For us two, it'll be a fun game. For anyone else watching on Red Zone who, after 30 minutes, goes, "Oh, this game's on again."
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll probably be one of those kind of games. I'm going to go with a 24-13 to the Lions. I will give us the opportunity to get a couple of touchdowns in on the ground, one in the air, and a field goal. But likewise, I think the Browns are going to they're going to find some areas to exploit. You'll get a touchdown, couple of field goals. So give me a 24-13, but statistically and game-wise, it will look a lot tougher than potentially even the scoreline suggests.
Yep. Yeah. You bet against your Lions last week, Fletch, and you're not doing it again. I bet against my Browns last week, and I am certainly going to be doing it again. I am, of course, going to pick the Lions to win this game. I'm an optimistic Browns fan, but I'm also a realistic Browns fan. I'm not going to sit here and gaslight anyone listening by saying that, yes, the Browns are going to win this game. Can they win the game? Certainly. I'm not one of those fans that say there's no chance. I was tweeting last week. Obviously, my tweets are not my actual thought of how the game was going to go. But I was making tweets last week saying the Browns are going to beat the Packers. Any given Sunday.
Yep.
But when I'm pressed on it and I need to give a prediction in this preview, no, I do expect the Lions to win this game. But I think the Browns' defense will do a good job against this Lions offense. I'm going to go 21-14.
Not far
I
off.
think Quinshon Judkins gets a touchdown.
Yeah.
One of those tight ends gets a touchdown. Maybe there's, and you said it, we're going to enjoy this game just based on the on-the-field matchups and everything. But if there is a point in this game where, let's say, it was 14-14, similar to the Packers game for the last 5 minutes when it was 10-10, I'm going to be shitting myself because I'm going to be going, wow, we have a chance to beat the Detroit Lions after beating the Packers. Just the final 5 minutes, I was going through it last week, Fletch. I'm sure you could imagine.
Oh, yeah.
I really was going through it. To get back into a game that we had no right being in, the joy of that then before I could even enjoy that, the Packers are back in field goal range and, oh no, we're going to lose the most Browns way possible, get back into a game that we should never be in and lose to a last-second field goal. Yeah. We obviously all know how it ended. The Browns were able to win that game. I'm going to enjoy this game, but if it is close, as I always do, squeaky bum time. Hopefully the Browns can keep it as close as they can. Hopefully the Browns' defense can keep this game as close as they can, give the offense every chance that they need, and hopefully this week the Browns offense can finally take some of those chances.
And sometimes,
but
do you know what?
Sorry?
I want to say sometimes, do you know what? To get your offense going, you just need one of those. It's not the offenses, but you just need it to start clicking and.
Yep. And getting that win last week, when you're, let's say they're 0-3 right now, the defense, I wouldn't feel bad. I wouldn't blame them if they went fuck this and didn't play as hard because our offense is basically playing against us. The offense is coming off another bad performance that they're not dumb. They're sat in the locker room going, I know that these defensive players are looking at us right now. I know that all of them are looking at us right now going, you are failing us.
Yeah.
You are the reason we are not winning games. Yes, they weren't great last week, but winning cures everything.
Yes.
So as you said, if there's any time to do it, it's now. Take this win, take this momentum, go and maybe score a touchdown early, go and have a good opening drive. Kevin Stefanski, in his career has been good at those scripted drives. Go, not this year, but in previous years, maybe you go and score early, put some pressure on, and we'll see how this will go. But as I said, I do expect the Lions to win this. And as much as some Lion fans on the internet have annoyed me the last couple of years with how they've abandoned the Lake Erie bro stuff, become a little bit like the that mate at school that became friends with the cool kids, that then no longer wants to be friends with you anymore, and when they see you they look away kind of thing. You haven't, don't get me wrong, of course you haven't, but there are some like that.
Oh yeah.
But even with that being said, still Lake Erie bros. There's not many teams I'd rather lose to. than the Lions. It's an NFC opponent. It doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of
Yeah.
things for the AFC. So all luck to you guys, and obviously all luck to you guys onwards after this game. All health. Hopefully you guys can stay healthy and go and have a good season. But before we finish, let everyone know where they can find you. I don't care how. Don't feel worried about it taking 2 minutes because you have about 100 different things.
Yeah.
Get them all out. Plug them all.
Yeah. So obviously this is where it really takes the most. If by the end of the game the Lions are a couple of scores up and we look pretty comfortable, you will find me on social media. If not, and it is squeaky bum time, you will find me behind the couch. If you do want to find me on social media personally, I'm Lions Guy Fletch on just about everything. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I don't really do much else. It's too hard to keep up with everything else these days, but they're the three main ones really. Obviously, like Ollie said, we both are on the Hurdle the Line podcast, which is part of the AAW network, a UK based podcast network and all that kind of thing, media network for fans of football, of all facets of football. We don't just talk about NFL, there's college football, there's everything. So I think the best place to go is the central point, which is the AAW network, which on Twitter is AAW_network, and then on everything else it's without the underscore. And then, well, come and find what me and Ollie do on Hurdle the Line, which is Hurdle the Line on everything. So those are the best places to find me, to find everything that kind of goes on this front. And again, I'm just going to address this to your audience, because I know what, if your audience is Browns fans, I know where 90% of them are thinking. You won't find anyone who always says, I make it a rule of myself to say one nice thing about Ohio State every single week, through gritted teeth, mind you, but I will. At the end of the day, you're the number one team in the country, you are the national champions, and look, you can't not hate players like Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith, and they're just such a joy they are just such a joy to watch. So if you want to see a Michigan fan gritted teeth compliment Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs, then yeah, I hate your defensive coordinator, and I'll never step off that hill. but I will try. So yeah, that's it. That's where to find me anyway.
Yep, I will link all of those links that Fletch mentioned in the description of the video. All my links are in there as well. You can find Fletch through those links, because of course I've got my all the links to the other podcasts that I do, i.e. Hurdle the Line, part of the AEW network. So all of that good stuff will be in the description. Fletch, thank you so much for lending me your time. Talk some Browns, Lions. As I said, good luck in this game. Here's to a good bill of health for both teams, and I look forward to talking to you throughout the game, and of course after the game, no matter what the score is.
Yeah, and also say likewise. I wish you the Browns the very best throughout the season, apart from this weekend, which I wish. Obviously, scoreline. Obviously, don't wish you the best, but like I say, it's always health. We don't want just no injuries, and just a damn good game of football is all we can really ask for.
That's all we want. But everyone, thank you so much for watching. As always, if you do enjoy the content, drop this video a like, subscribe button, all of that good stuff. It helps out with the algorithm gods. But as always, most importantly, above all else, go Browns.